Welcome back to the Talkoffame podcast. I'm Kylie Montini, and today we are introducing you to NEPA native Mitzi Campell. After nearly 3 decades as a college professor and going head to head with the debilitating health crisis, she felt called to move outside the confines of the four walls of the classroom to teach in the schools of life. She's a transformational teacher and a host of the Blessons Podcast, and she works with people to help them go after their desires, self-actualize, and extract powerful lessons and blessings from life experiences so they can identify blind spots, release false foundational beliefs, and learn the life lessons that felt unlearned and hold them back from living their true potential. Mitzi and I connected probably earlier this year, late last year. Honestly, my brain is not remembering when we connected, but it was sometime around the end of the year, beginning of this year. And she had gave me the opportunity to be a guest on her podcast, which is not out yet, but once it is, make sure to stay tuned on my socials to check it out. But thank you so much, Mitzi, for joining us today. I'm literally so happy to connect with you again and maybe really doing another podcast episode again.
I know it's wonderful to see you again, Kylie, and I'm very excited to be on your show.
Thank you so much. So, of course, you are a transformational teacher. Like, how do you help students transform into their best selves, importantly?
Well, I believe anyone can transform at any stage of their life. And even though my students these days are individuals or companies, organizations in the world at large, rather than just teaching in the classroom, the concept of personal growth is still the same because we elevate ourselves through self-knowledge first. You have to be able to be open to learning something about yourself so that you can grow and elevate. So everybody thinks they know themselves. You could ask people, how well do you know yourself? They'll think, oh, I know myself pretty well. But the statistics show that actually people do not really know themselves as well as they think. And self-discovery is something that goes on throughout your lifetime.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah, so the main key to transformation is self-discovery, self-knowledge, self-awareness, and just realizing you don't really know as much about yourself probably as you think.
Oh, that's so interesting. Because I know when I hear a lot of people say they know themselves very well, they're just like, I know myself pretty well. Just, acting confident in maybe in this sad moment, like, okay, who am I? Like, the question
Exactly.
that a lot of people ask themselves is, who am I? And some people most of the time have a question, like a hard time answering that question. And sometimes I do as well. Like, not everyone knows themselves perfectly as you may think. And sometimes your parents or your siblings might know you better than you know yourself as a human being.
So true. Identity is a combination of what you think about yourself and what others think about you. That's
Exactly. Like,
kind of
how
kind of
do
mind-blowing.
But as someone like as we're both from northeastern Pennsylvania, of course, northeastern Pennsylvania is a pretty large region, if you ask me. But have you connect with individuals that are kind of dealing with that locally, especially here in northeastern Pennsylvania?
Well, I connect a lot with people through social media, through networking groups, in the local area, primarily through networking groups and just getting to know people. I mean, you have to put yourself out there and connect with the people who might have problems to solve or ways that you can help them. I guess I go into every situation with the idea of how can I serve humanity in this situation? And I tend to be the kind of person that no matter where I go, people sort of tell me things. So I just have an openness and I keep that openness in my heart and in my mind wherever I go. But yeah, networking and just getting yourself out there and both social media and in real life.
I love that. Like, I think that's how we connected, actually. I
Yeah, on
believe.
LinkedIn. It was
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. I believe you reached out to me the one day on LinkedIn. I actually check LinkedIn a couple times a day, which is a bad habit of mine. I don't know why I check it multiple times a day, but I do. But I believe we connected on LinkedIn and we just sort of connected in a way. Of course, we both have podcasts, so that's something a lot of people connect on. But of course, we're from northeastern Pennsylvania, so of course we have a lot to talk about. It's a small area. like a
That's right.
small area, but big region is the best place to call it. But of course, with going out and doing podcasts like this, it's a huge way to network and connect with other people as well.
It sure is.
But, after having a strong support system, especially with having, a podcast or trying to develop personal growth and empowerment, like how does, a strong support system contribute to personal growth and empowerment? Because I know as a 17-year-old person, I know I sometimes rely on strong support system to actually help me grow. I'm sure other people as well, but how does it contribute to personal growth and empowerment?
Well, I think that a support system is essential for people to grow, but it's maybe not what people traditionally think of as a support system. So you have your external support, which is people on the outside, but you also need to strengthen your internal support system, which is how you are on the inside. And so both of those are very important. And your support people who are on the outside, the external people, they have to be people who you can count on to really keep it real. So
Mhm,
people who are, I call them authenticity partners. They're people who will support you, who are unconditionally accepting and maybe love you unconditionally, but they're going to tell it like it is. They're not going to coddle you. They're not going to lie to you. So when they're being supportive, they're there for you, but at the same time, if there's something you need to know in order to learn in a particular situation, they're the people who are going to let you know, because that's the only
mhm,
way you can really grow. So support, yes, but not commiseration. And I think that's really essential to think about that. And also strengthening that inner guidance, inner support system. And that you do through confronting difficult situations with a sense of empowerment,
mhm.
or acting in spite of fear, or going into places where you might have to go out of your comfort zone. And that's how you build the resilience when you're trying to strengthen your internal support system. So a
Mm.
good combination of internal and external is really the key.
It really is a key. I know from personal experiences, I have, two brothers and a sister. So my parents, whenever I'm in one of those moods of personal growth, I'm just trying to figure out something. I mostly get snapped and to get told as it is rather than this cuddling or whatever it is. Because I'm the type of person that loves to be told what it is rather than being lied to and doing nothing about it. Because of
Yeah,
course, that's how you grow. Like
that's
that's
how you
how
grow.
you learn and grow as a person is that people might criticize you, but it's for the better, even if it's from your parents, friends, family members, whatever it is. Criticism is not always a bad thing. And criticism
No,
can be good for you to grow as a person, whether it's work, your mental health or what. It can be anything, but any
Mhm.
criticism or support people are really telling you as it is as a personal growth or empowering yourself is really when people criticize you based off of different things, it helps you grow more than anything, most likely.
Yeah, if you think of it as feedback, when it's coming from someone you love, when it's coming from someone who, from a place of love, and this doesn't have to be someone you actually like are, love, like not a family member. It could be a person in the world, but people can connect to one another with a place of love in mind, even though you're not, saying you love that person. So that's what I mean when I say that. It's from a place of good intentions. Um, Actual criticism, abuse, harm, that's not cool. That is not support. That's not good feedback. But when you have someone who is coming from a place of good intentions, that's the difference. And so, the idea of having people in your life who can support you in that way is the only way you're going to grow. If you're playing, say, baseball and your coach is giving you feedback on your swing, you don't want your coach to just say, "Great job, too bad you missed and got struck out on that one, but you did a good job anyway." You want to hear the coach tell you exactly why you struck out. How do I need to hold the bat differently? Do I need to swing it differently? What did I do? So it's always about the self. It's
Mhm.
really that whenever something's bothering you and you need support, there's something you're supposed to be learning from that situation about yourself. And so we have a tendency to want to blame external circumstances when in reality, anytime you're struggling is a good opportunity to learn something about yourself.
Exactly. I love that you brought that up. Because I know, like, I love that you brought this up before when you're talking. Is that, like, I found, like, from other people and myself as well, that people will most likely listen to their mentor or the family members or coaches in terms of criticism or kind of how to switch things rather than people that they barely know. Like, that's when I see someone coming over to me that I absolutely love as a friend or something. And they say, "Oh, you need to do this. You need to do that to make yourself better." I'm like, "All right, I'll pay attention to people that I trust more than people that I barely even know or even talk to. Even if they watch this episode, they're like, "Oh, say something." I'm like, I don't know what to say to that." So I found that when people tell you criticism that you it's terms of people that you love, it's really you take it in more than most people will.
Mhm. And it's also good to notice if someone is just randomly, giving you this feedback all the time, even if it's someone that you love, that's still it has to come from a place where you're asking for it, where you're open to it. You don't want someone in your life who's constantly criticizing you. So there is a little bit of a boundary you can set if that's happening all the time. But there's nothing wrong with asking people, what do you think I should work on in this situation? Or how do you think I can show up better in this situation rather than just saying I need support? Ask for specific feedback. So there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times in the personal development world, people will do an exercise where they text someone or call someone and say, all right, can you give me 3 things about me that you think I should improve? And that's a scary thing to do.
Yeah, it is. Honestly takes so much courage to ask those questions, but it also is a very important question to ask if you're looking to improve yourself as a person. Maybe you're maybe self-conscious about yourself, or maybe you don't like the way you are. And when you ask those questions to people, saying, how can I change my self-confidence? How can I change the way I feel about myself? And when you ask those questions, you can get different feedback to actually making yourself feel good when you're out with friends or family. And the way you treat yourself is the way you treat other people is the way you should treat yourself.
Yeah. And you want to make sure it's coming from a place of love. And, there's always a balance between self acceptance and self love and developing self esteem and self confidence and being open to feedback. So you have to find that balance. We're always talking about self care and self love, and this is very important. But if you want to grow and improve as a person, then you're going to change, and change
Mhm.
is required. It's what transformation means is change. And so, you might be a caterpillar when you could be a butterfly. And maybe there's
Mhm.
someone in your life that can help you to make that change.
Yeah, and I know change can be, so scary to a lot of people. Everyone is very scared in terms of change, whatever you're going through, but change can be a good thing, not a bad thing. Of course, change can be very difficult for some people, what maybe it's losing a loved one, or you're changing, you're moving to a different state or town you don't know anyone. Change can be so good for you. No matter what. Of course, there's pros and cons to changes, but change can be amazing for you, even though it might not seem like that in the moment.
That's true. That's true. And, some people want to change, some people don't want to change, but you're going to change anyway, whether you like it or not. So
Right?
you can try to direct that change in to a place where you're intentionally focusing on how you want to grow and improve, or you can let the world kind of have its way with you and get tossed around a little bit, and that's not going to feel as good. So
Yeah,
you can take
exactly.
control of
And
your transformation.
yeah, and to go into your podcast a little bit. So you have, the Blessons podcast you've been doing for a while, but what is the Blessons podcast and how can people listen to it?
Okay. Well, thanks for asking. The Blessons podcast is my baby, and I started it back in 2023. And I was 56 years old when I started my podcast. So I'm kind of living proof that you can transform and change your life and start something new. When you're older, you can do it. When you're younger, you can do it at any stage of life. You should never, ever let your stage of life hold you back from anything,
Mhm.
young, old, in the middle, wherever. So the podcast is a place where I wanted to bring people together, and I wanted people to be able to talk about their stories and their experiences so that other people could connect to them, because we have been so divided as a society through different experiences we've had, the pandemic, different things
Mhm.
going on in culture and society and politics. And it's very disheartening, very sad, and difficult for those of us who really just love other people, want humanity to be unified, and want to provide positive interaction. So that's what I wanted to do with Blessings, was just to get people to see, like, everybody has so many more similarities than differences. And we really should be open to seeing ourselves in other people, and then it makes us feel a little bit less alone. So I thought about Blessings as the name because it's a combination of the words blessings and lessons. And I really believe that we are here to learn lessons. I believe that's our purpose here as human beings, and
Mhm.
that we do that so that we can elevate our consciousness. And, in the next go round, we can come back a little bit better than we did the time before. And we can sort of heal things about ourselves and our generational wounds through that life experience of learning lessons. And so blessings are just uh, things that people learn about themselves and about others that help us to access our desires.
I love
And
that. And
yeah,
that's part of the reason why I want to join your podcast when you asked. It was immediate yes for me personally, because of course, me and your podcast are very similar. The reason why I started this. It's very similar to your stories. Like I want to hear, like, share people's stories, and of course, change the narrative to people, have people connect to different stories and feel inspired and actually feel like they're not alone in different situations, and to
right.
really get their stories out there, because every story is very important. Every story should be heard, no matter what. And of course, during the pandemic, it was very hard for people to real in terms of mental health and everything, and they really needed people to connect to, and podcasting is really the good thing for it. Is that, like, when you hear people's stories, you feel more inspired to share yours and start something new. Because of course, a lot when you hear someone do something, you're like, oh, why should I try that? Or you have the motivation to actually do something when you hear or watch someone do it. So it's a really a huge reason why I started, and also why I joined your podcast as well, because it's really important to get people's stories out there when people really need to hear it.
Yeah, it's so true. We need to connect, and podcasts are a great way for people to do that. You can learn so much, you can get to know people, and just feel like there is something more, something bigger than you going on in the world.
It really is. And so with your podcast, like how has hosting a podcast for basically a year now helped you like change your narrative on life stories?
Well, it's really changed my perspective on life a lot. I am a very open-minded person, and I thought that I had a wide perspective before I started the podcast. But after starting it and getting to know so many people through it, I have just broadened my horizons even more. I've connected to people I never thought I'd connect to. I just interviewed Dr. Joe Vitale, who is one of the members of The Secret. And so I'm connecting with these people I never ever thought I would be able to meet. And also, a lot of just regular people and who have amazing stories, who've been through really terrible things, really wonderful things, and things that I could not experience myself except through having spoken to them. And it's
Mhm.
beautiful. And I just feel like the idea of making connections with people outside of your normal little circle is how you expand your mind. And um, asking people big questions. No small talk on my podcast. We talk about big things,
Mhm.
important things, things that make you think, and things that make you really go deep inside into yourself.
Mhm.
And that's what I love. I cannot get enough of it, and it's expanded my life in a million different ways. It's just beautiful.
Like I'm literally on the same boat as you. Like once I asked this question, I was literally thinking what my answer would be. You basically covered it
Yes.
all, honestly. But you basically covered my answer. But with having a podcast, like I was, yeah, a shy kid. It was bad. Like it was honestly, I would never talk to anyone. And growing up with watching so much TV and shows, I always like, I just want to meet people like this. I always want to, do something entertainment or sports, but never knew what to do. I just, with a young kid, you don't really know what to do in your life until maybe you're in like like late middle school, early high school, around that point. But once I started this podcast, I'm like really like never figured like or figured how much people I would meet through this podcast and how big it would get. Like with meeting all these people and the people that you maybe grew up watching or grew up, following on social media or absolutely loved, that is honestly the best part about it is like you meet people that you never get the chance to meet and also learn something new every single day from people that you get to talk with, whether through your podcast or even on social media. That is honestly the best part about it is that you get to learn things that you never, weren't interested in or just kind of get a different perspective on different things and just really connect with people since COVID really changed the narrative in terms of in-person connection. Zoom and podcast became so popular to the point where now it's like everyone's doing it from what I see. So it's really great to have those conversations and really just get like a different narrative out there from what you were a couple years ago.
Very true. Yes.
But in terms of personal growth, like what are some strategies that you in your personal opinion to overcome fears of failure and rejection when embarking on a new venture pursuing personal growth? That is honestly something I really struggle with a lot. And I want to ask this question so bad to you because I knew you'll probably get a good answer. So yeah, what are some strategies to overcome fears of failure and to pursue personal growth?
Oh, this is such a great question, Kylie. I mean, so many of us struggle with this at all ages, young, old, people just never grow out of this. It's always something that people struggle with. And even though you can overcome it at one point, it may come back later because we all have fear as a part of us. It is not something that will ever leave us because it's there for a purpose. It's our primitive uh, savior. It's something that we were born with so that it protects us from danger. So sometimes the fear that lives in us comes out not when it's protecting us from danger, but when we're feeling a little bit of anxiety about doing something new or going into a situation or trying something. Or there are lots of reasons why it might come out. But if you are fantasizing about having a different life, doing something new, trying to gather up courage to try something that's outside of your comfort zone, that fear may show its head. But really, that is something that you can ask yourself the question, is this fear coming up because it's trying to protect me from danger?
Mhm,
Or is it coming up because I'm needing to learn a lesson? And so it's always one of those two things. If you think the fear is there because you're in danger, then I'm not going to do this thing. I could possibly get hurt. I'm not going to do it. But if it's not realistic and you know that in your heart that the fear is just trying to get in your way, maybe it's a little bit of an obstacle, maybe it's a test, then you can push through it. And the only person who can answer that question is you. You
mhm,
have to ask yourself, what's the fear trying to tell me? So fear of failure, fear of rejection. I mean, and the fear of failure is something that you have to realize failure is just a redirection to something different. How
mhm,
many times did Thomas Edison make different versions of the light bulb before he found one that worked? Every single one of those times was not a failure. It was just trying something that didn't work to lead him to the thing that works. So that's what I don't even like the word failure. I think of
mhm,
opportunities for growth. Every time the word failure, the word mistake, I think those words should be replaced with opportunity for growth. And
mhm,
so that's what I think of there. And then rejection, like there are two types of rejection, like the rejection of, say, you're trying out for something like a team and you're not going to make it. You're afraid you're not going to make it. That would be a type of rejection. But any rejection, or even like rejection from people, let's say you're trying to go into a social situation and you're feeling afraid, you're feeling anxious about going into a big party or something, or walking in alone to the lunchroom, or going to an event where you don't know anyone yet. That can also bring up the fear of rejection. But any rejection is only redirection. Rejection is protection. And it's just telling you that you are not supposed to go in that direction. You're supposed to go in a different direction. That's what rejection is. So if you can just remember that. And another really good quick technique is when you're afraid of failure, to go back in your life and find times that were similar to what you're attempting to do in this moment, and remember that you've survived it, that you got around it, that you got through it, that you were successful. So think about other examples, evidence in your life of times that you were successful at things.
That is such a great tip because, of course, when people are maybe scared about maybe going to a social setting or, maybe getting a job, but you're feared you're not going to get it. And so when you are in a situation to look back and see, like, even if I like did this interview years ago that's similar to this, did I get it and what did I learn from it? And because of course we're gonna face rejections are alive. That's a part of life, even if we like it or not. And I hate being told no. Like I hate the word no. I just hate it. And so whenever I get told no, I'm just like, okay, like what is no even a word? Like, can it be so differently? But of course, when you look back on situations in your life, you should be able to connect to this thing saying, is this a right fit for me? Am I going to like this thing that I'm going to? Or is it right for me? Is it right for me to go or should I stay home? It's because even if you feel like you have a fear of going to this thing, ask yourself, like, is it your gut telling you like this not go, something's gonna happen, or is this your fear getting to you at first? So it's
Hmm.
really like just taking a time and sitting down when you have a moment to think, is this time that I'm going to use worth my time? That I could be doing something else.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you have to remember that it could be a test from the universe telling you, here's an opportunity to push through your comfort zone into your level of discomfort so that you can expand that zone of comfort eventually by exposing yourself to things that cause you to push through, to have grit, to have determination, and to develop those muscles, because that's how you transform.
For sure. And to wrap this up, like, how can people connect with you on socials or anything if they maybe want to book you for something or just want to learn more about you?
Yeah, I love making connections. You can find me on Instagram at Mitzi and Campbell. You can find me on the all of the podcast platforms at the Blessons Podcast, Apple, Spotify, all of them, even YouTube. And I'm also on Facebook at Mitzi Campbell and on LinkedIn, Mitzi Campbell MA. So any of those places, and my website is mitzicampbell.com. And I absolutely would love to connect with anybody who wants to reach out if you have any questions or if you want to just say hello.
Awesome. You're literally everywhere, more than me, so which is great. But I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Make sure to go check out our podcast and make sure to tune in for all the amazing things she's doing and for upcoming episodes. You'll find me listening to her episode because I'm really obsessed with her podcast. So that's a definitely listen if you want to hear stories, different stories of people. But thank you so much for joining us and thank you so much for taking the time. It was really great connecting with you again. We'll definitely have to do another one soon.
We do. Thanks, Kylie. It was so good.